Hey everybody, it's Rick Uzzi. I'm here with Carlos Bustamante, and we're continuing our series on DOCSIS proactive network maintenance. Today we're going to be talking about something, and I don't know about you or you, if you've ever had this happen. This is my analogy for this, but if you've ever been on the phone talking to somebody, maybe a conference call where there's several people on the phone, and you're talking, and you're the only one, but there's an echo. So you're trying to talk, but you hear yourself talking just a split second afterward. And it's really disconcerting. It's really confusing when you're trying to do that. I mean, to try to actually speak when that's going on is difficult. Now, we're going to be talking about group delay today. That's a little bit different, but it made me think of that kind of the delay of, you're saying something, you're hearing something back. But in this case, we're talking about group delay communication between the CMTS and the cable communicating upstream, right?
That's right. Right. So up until now, as you remember, we've covered in the last 3-4 weeks, I believe. Mm-hmm. So we talked about equalization in general, pre-equalization specifically on as it relates to PNM. We've gone through impedance mismatch, microreflections, echo cavities. I believe we covered in-channel frequency response. And again, like Rick was saying, we're going to talk about group delay. So the intent of these little episodes to be able to boil down a concept in a way that we could, consume it and go back to it and take it in and go to the next step, so we can have building blocks as we continue in learning PNM. Mm-hmm. Group delay has been challenging as far as getting an example to provide, because it's quite math oriented.
I was going to say something here that I was told there would be no math. So
yeah, so
I want you to keep this at a high level if you
absolutely, can. Absolutely. So we'll cover what group delay is, and we'll show you some snippets on off of a PNM platform, so we can go to it. So we'll go to it now. Just switch over to the slide and go to, what is it, and go from there. Okay. So essentially, group delay is a linear impairment, and it causes intersymbol interference, which degrades the bit error rate. So essentially, what is it? And group delay is when signals at certain frequencies take a lot longer to get to its destinations than other frequencies. So basically, we're talking about time, right? So where is this an issue? Group delay is more prevalent near the band edges and the diplex filter roll-off. So since we're looking at upstream, as you approach 42 megahertz on the higher end, for example, that's one example for you. So frequency response problems in a coax network will cause group delay problems. So anyway, back to how we measure group delay. Again, we group delay is defined in units of time, and for our purposes, it's nanoseconds. So basically, how much group delay is there per megahertz of spectrum? So the DOCSIS specification, the authors provide group delay thresholds of best practice to be less than 200 nanoseconds per megahertz in the upstream direction. So if a cable network group delay exceeds this, essentially data transmission and bit error rates could be impacted. So since we're talking about PNM, luckily equalization compensates for group delay. So if we look at the image on the right, the lower right, we see a whole bunch of vertical bar graphs, and this is kind of a teaser for the next episode, next Tuesday, right after Memorial Day. Mm-hmm. It'd be great. All right. So the first 7 vertical bars, we'll call them bars at this point, will give you an indicator if there is presence of group delay. All right. So that's again the lower right. Especially as you see the nice little stair step in the first 7 vertical bars, which we'll call digital taps, they'll tell you a presence of group delay. And again, this is where PNM comes into play to be able to compensate for this type of impairment. But as with anything in technology, there are limits. That's why we want to be proactive. So ultimately, since the return path is a breathing, living organism that's sensitive to everything from environmental changes to even a customer intervention, so PNM provides group delay as yet another marker, so that we can, as we're proactively looking for impairments that are causing the DOCSIS network to not work optimally.
So on this slide, we're seeing, again, the PNM tool can alert us to this, and you can see kind of, I guess, a slope upward here in the in-channel frequency response. And you said, I think last week, that was kind of the top of the haystack. Is that correct? So,
That's right. That's right. So if we were looking at a return signal and we had a tiny magnifying glass and just zoomed in right at the very top, instead of looking at a completely flat line in the upper right hand image that you see here, this is the top of that haystack where you're seeing some impairment.
And then again, when it's group delay, we see this, as you say, kind of this slope or this ramp upward toward the main tap.
Correct. So basically, as we spoke about in the previous episode where we were talking about in-channel frequency response, this image is what the modem has had to do to the inverted message that is sending back into the CMTS. The first 7 bars in the lower right, again, if you're seeing a nice staircase as you see here, it's an indicator that that this particular customer, this modem, is impacted by group delay.
Great. Okay. So again, the real value here, let's say in a PNM tool, would be the fact that you can be alerted to this. Group delay, I guess, could be kind of hard to see or to find, but here, because of the PNM tool and the pre-equalization coefficients and how the modem's adjusting its power, we have an opportunity to see that that's there.
Absolutely, and as we know, just by using a PNM platform, one modem or one customer may not be impacted by one issue. So as you're combating issues that are common to many customers and resolve it, well, that may resolve that issue, but not every issue. So as you start looking at near home or in-home issues on a per customer basis, for example, in that example, you're looking at those first 7 digital taps, and you're seeing that type of representation, then there's probably something that this customer is impacted by group delay.
And that, again, that happens maybe on the edges of the band.
That's right. That's right. So for example, if a particular upstream channel bandwidth is centered, let's say, just for example, right in the middle of the passband of the 5 to 42 megahertz, then it's probably going to not be impacted by group delay. As you start approaching to the upper end, for example, where you're approaching 42 megahertz, which is the upper end of the upstream, then there is likelihood that it's going to be impacted by that some frequencies will get there later than others.
So if they've got a diplex filter and they put their QAM channel too close to that, that's a situation where that might cause that
could
roll
be
off.
That could be, yes.
Some group delay. Okay. All right. Well, next week we're gonna delve more into the digital taps, which you saw kind of a preview of there, where you've got your 24 different sampling points, and again, how those react will help us determine not only kind of what problem we have, such as group delay, maybe by looking at that, but also distances involved when we're talking about echo cavities. So that will be next week. So make sure you subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Make sure you click the little bell after you subscribe, and that will give you a notification whenever we're live or whenever we post a new video. So thanks a lot, Carlos.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next week. He reminded me after Memorial Day.
That's right.
So make sure that you are in good shape after Memorial Day.
I'll do my best.
And you guys, that'll be something good for you to watch on that Tuesday.
Yes.
Right. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Have a great weekend.